Hello, Foxy Finds here. Welcome back to Foxy's Shiny Quest. This week I had a pretty good batch of Pokemon in terms of trivia. I'm excited to share with you what I found. Let's jump right in. First up, we have an incredibly powerful and incredibly weak Pokemon. It's both loved and hated, treated like garbage and treasured. We have Magikarp. This Pokemon is so incredibly common, Magikarp can be found anywhere that there's a water source. Its stats are not really great. Its best stat is speed, and that's only 60. This Pokemon has access to moves such as Tackle and Flail, and most of the time when you catch it, it's just going to no Splash, which literally does nothing. On a side note, Splash in Japanese just means to hop around uselessly. When it got moved to the United States translation, they changed it to Splash because it was the signature move of this water Pokemon. It made sense. In Generation 2, we got Baby Pokemon, and it made sense in the Japanese to give them this move that was just hopping around uselessly. Didn't quite translate in the American audience very well when these babies were using Splash. However, this Pokemon is not all bad. It is capable of jumping incredibly high. When it gets strong enough, they're capable of jumping over waterfalls. They can survive in water that is perfectly clean or extremely polluted. It can survive in fresh water, salt water, fast water, slow water, water that's not moving at all. They produce many eggs. This Pokemon can get access to moves such as Bounce and Hydro Pump under special circumstances. And when it does, this Pokemon can be quite the powerhouse on its own. Even Flail isn't that bad of a move when used correctly. This Pokemon's shiny color is gold. This really shows off well in the newest games. This Pokemon's shiny form is often considered more valuable than its evolved form, which they basically hand out like it's nothing. This Pokemon is weak, but as a creature, it might be the most adaptable water Pokemon that there is. It is incredibly successful as a species. In the last video, I got a Blissey during the Community Day event. Well, that event also had a higher chance of eggs that were put in incubators during the event of hatching into a shiny Happiny. I wasn't expecting this, but I learned to always record when I was playing Pokemon Go, and I'm glad I did. Happiny is our very first baby Pokemon. These Pokemon are discernible because they cannot breed, but they evolve into something that can. They are notably weak in terms of stats, and oftentimes they get very poor movesets. In almost every case, the Pokemon evolve through happiness. Most cases, that is. Happiny is one of the exceptions. Instead of evolving by happiness, Happiny evolves when it is given an oval stone and levels up. The oval stone has the appearance of an egg, it puts it in its pouch, and it imitates its evolutions. Another Pokemon Go shiny, this was a random encounter with no boosted odds from anything. Noibat. While it may not sound remarkable, this is the first dual type Pokemon where its first or primary type is flying. There was only one Pokemon previously that had flying type as its primary type, and for obvious reasons, that would have been a single typed Pokemon. Somehow, I think the flying dragon type does really fit the bat. This Pokemon's name is a combination of noise and bat. It uses a decent number of sound-based attacks, and its ears are shaped and act like speakers. And rolling off that, we have Yanma. Another example of a Pokemon that is just an animal that they turned into a Pokemon. Like Noibat, this Pokemon uses a decent number of sound-based attacks. It's notable for the powerful sound waves that it can make with its wings. Yanma's English name is actually just the Japanese word for dragonfly. On to the Pokemon representing all of those who suffer from chronic headaches, Psyduck. This Pokemon has a constant headache. When its headache gets worse, it shows psychic powers, despite just being pure water type. The worse the headache, the stronger these powers seem, although it's often unaware that it even has these and is unable to control them. In the early seasons of the anime, Misty is seen to have a Psyduck, and they really play this off. She encourages her opponents to attack Psyduck's head, and when they do, she usually wins the battle. Conversely, on the last season of the anime, we get to see a trainer that has a shiny Psyduck. And just after that, believe it or not, I found an alpha shiny Psyduck. In Legends Arceus, some Pokemon have been empowered, and as a result, are much larger and start off with better EVs, which I'm sure I'll explain eventually. I didn't even see the shiny sparkle on this, nor did I need to. Look at how big it is! Since I already had a Psyduck, I was able to evolve this one up to Golduck. Since Psyduck is yellow, and Golduck has better control over its psychic powers, despite still being water type, some people speculate that their names got switched. This is false, however. We have an early poster that shows Pokemon from Generation 1 with some beta names, and Psyduck and Golduck remain unchanged. Psyduck has some psychic capabilities, but Golduck really has them down. In Japanese, psychic powers are often connected with the color gold. In fact, in Generation 1, defeating the Psychic Gym Leader would give you the Gold Badge. That's its actual Japanese name. Golduck is said to be the fastest swimming Pokemon. Or that's what they said in Generation 1. While I'm not one to speculate too much here, I have a feeling that maybe Golduck was misusing its psychic powers to bolster what people would think the results are when it would race other Pokemon. Though, it is a really good swimmer and fares well in rough waters. And finally, we have Silcoon. Or, that's what Jesse and this particular guard would say. Cascoon. While it's not any less desirable than its evolutionary sibling Silcoon, it seems to be less expected by some people in the Pokemon world. Nearly identical to Silcoon, it has a different color and eye design. They both evolve from the same Pokemon, and what you get is random depending on internal values. Personally, I've always liked Cascoon a little bit more than Silcoon, but I like having the set. Well, that's all for today. This episode was quite fun to do, one of my favorites so far. A lot of these Pokemon have interesting trivia that makes them unique in the Pokemon world, or had an effect on how Game Freak approached things. Well, that is it for this video. Have a wonderful week, and as always, happy hunting!